Welcome to MEJABULAT Sidang Suara Seni Session 2. Session 2 is, the theme is KL, I love you, but forming support systems for the visual arts in Malaysia beyond Kuala Lumpur. And moderating this session will be Simon Soon and Nadira Ilana. Simon Soon is a senior lecturer in Southeast Asian art history at the Visual Arts Program, Cultural Centre, University of Malaya, and also a team member of Malaysia Design Archive. Nadira Ilana is a filmmaker from Kuala Kota Kinabalu. She's a passionate advocate for indigenous and marginalised narratives. Welcome to our moderators and good luck today. Before we start, for the newcomers, I'd just like to remind you of some of the ground rules. Please, everyone, I hope your phones are on silent. Now, as before, I will allow 3 minutes, up to 3 minutes for each participant to speak. But please also keep to the question. If you're not keeping to the question, I will also ring the bell. And please do allow as many participants to contribute today as possible. I know you have lots to say, but give everybody a chance. That's it, and I'll leave it to Simon and Nadira. Thank you.
Nadira, you want to start off?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Hope everybody enjoyed your lunch. So we are about to go into session 2, KL, I love you, but forming support systems for the visual arts in Malaysia beyond Kuala Lumpur. The title actually alludes to a song by LCD Sound System, so hopefully nobody can rasa Paula. So art is not created in a vacuum. It is through context, process, and collaboration that collectively provide art its meaning and value. Although there is no right way to create an ecosystem for art, there can be best practices to create support systems for artists. And over the years, and especially in the past decade, art world infrastructure, state, private, and market has certainly expanded in the country, but it is sometimes felt to be disconnected from the real lives and needs of artists and art workers, or even misdirected or underutilized, benefiting only some. Arguably, some of the most effective and dynamic support systems have come from among artists themselves through collective practices and initiatives. Another question is, where in Malaysia are these developments taking place?
And Kuala Lumpur has been held as the artistic center of Malaysia for a long time, right? Attracting artists from across the country. It's the home to the National Art Gallery, still the main pillar of art support and promotion, alongside other newer public art spaces, and private ones as well. The art market thrives exclusively in the capital, creating a cosmopolitan Malaysian visual arts identity. A visual arts identity that has the potential to be even more diverse and to flourish were we to imagine its growth beyond Kuala Lumpur. As other urban centers like Penang, or perhaps also places like Sarawak and Kuching aspire to become alternative arts hub, there remains the question of how non-urban, including indigenous, artisan communities, sustain their practices. This session, I think we're trying to sort of like explore how to improve existing sort of like support systems and how these can be more inclusive of artists throughout sort of like Malaysia. And I think one of the best ways to sort of like go about this is really to sort of like, start from the very sort of like beginning. What role do some of the key institutions and agencies that are in existence today in both Kuala Lumpur and Malaysia, what role do they play in supporting the visual arts? And how can artists, the arts community, engage with supporting these institutions and agencies sort of like better? Should sort of we have those?
Do you think, or is it still relevant?
Are they still sort of like relevant? What's the next question?
So, ask in bahasa as well.
Okay.
Sorry, I have to ask in bahasa also. Apakah peranan yang harus dimainkan oleh institusi dan agensi utama yang sedia ada untuk menyokong pembangunan seni visual? Adakah ia wajar untuk seniman ataupun komuniti seni untuk melibatkan diri dan menyokong program institusi dan agensi tersebut? Kalau ya, bagaimana? Kalau tidak, mengapa tidak? Dan adakah institusi ini masih relevan kepada artis?
Sorry, LBM is going to sound like Indonesian. Sabahan, main technology dan sebagainya. Given that we actually have some of the leaders of a number of sort of like key cultural institutions here, I want to sort of like maybe sort of like point to the Deputy Director of the National Art Gallery, Jeremy Rudin, who's here with us today, and there's also Jennifer, Mrs. Jennifer Lingi from Sabah Art Gallery, and Ms. Haryani from the Penang Museum and Gallery, and Rahel Joseph from the Ilham Gallery here with us. And I was told that Dr. Najib is also here with us today. So, given that the first question that we're going to launch is we sort of like ask about the role of sort of like key existing institutions, maybe one of you can sort of like do the honors of sort of like telling us what you think the role of your institution is playing in supporting the visual arts. Any one of you would like to sort of like say a few words? Thank you.
Terima kasih, Simon dan dari saya Amir dari Kepala Negara. Sedikit menyebut tentang support system. Untuk makluman tuan-tuan dan puan-puan, Balai Seni Negara adalah satu museum seni di Malaysia. Jadi untuk relevan dengan masyarakat sangatlah challenging. Bukan sahaja menjadi satu grup kumpulan pelukis sahaja, tapi kami perlu relevan pada masyarakat di society. Jadi mungkin kita tahu sebelum ini balai hanya memberi penumpuan pada seni visual dalam konteks artistic expression. Sebenarnya ada 3 hal yang kita perlu beri perhatian sebagai relevan dengan society, iaitu benda yang berkaitan dengan seni visual dalam ceremonial, functional, narrative dan juga persuasive. So, 4 perkara ini adalah berkaitan dengan artistic expression, dan semuanya ini juga akan melihat kepada dengan kita panggil national significant kepada negara. Jadi keempat perkara ini kami perlu beri perhatian, dan sudah tentulah dalam kalangan kumpulan masyarakat pelukis juga rasa kami perlu beri perhatian lebih sebenarnya. Tapi kita perlu maklum, kita perlu beri perhatian semua sekali, dan masyarakat pelukis ini dah berperhatian 60 tahun kita bersama balai, dan 60 tahun depan ini kita melihat ke mana ada tujuan baru yang perlu kita lihat selain daripada satu kelompok pelukis, tapi juga bagaimana ianya signifikan kepada negara. Mungkin ada rakan saya yang akan terima kasih.
Penang State Museum and Art Gallery is a statutory body, Badan Berkaitan Negeri, which is fall directly under state. We're not under MOTAC or federal institution such as Balai. So generally, our role and function as a museum and art gallery, besides the collection and the exhibition, publication, engagement with the artists and community program, we're looking and foresee ourselves in 5 years of direction. We're not just having same exhibition or running ourselves as a gallery for the past 53 years. Whereby now the state government, directly from the Penang State Art Gallery, we have a 9.2 acre land given by the state to start with the Penang Art District. We're going to have a PAD, which is going to be a center hub for visual art, contemporary art, performing, and also various sequence of art. Which is not the historical part, which is a suburban area, which is in a buffer zone of a heritage, 9.2 of acre. We're going to be a hub center for the art scene. We're not taking over the Kuala Lumpur, it's just we're going to do it our own way. So it's a 30 million project, and Penang State Museum is part of it, leading the project. It's going to be a city of an art by itself. So we're looking forward for that, and of course we're going to open our door, which is actually we did, to also artists from Kuala Lumpur and various other states, including Sabah and Sarawak. So looking forward for that. Okay.
Yeah. Selamat petang, saya Siti Melo dari Museum dan Galeri Seni Negara Malaysia. So, hala tuju Museum dan Negara, kami ada 6 galeri yang berkaitan dengan kewangan, numismatik, mata wang dan juga galeri datar, termasuklah galeri seni salah satunya. So, dalam perancangan kami adalah memang melibatkan pameran yang kami adakan adalah dalam 2 kategori, sama ada seni ataupun yang non-art lah. So, jadi kami harus dan akan dari segi sini memang kami mengalukan any proposal daripada luar, daripada artis sendiri ataupun any persatuan dan juga daripada internal from our side. And then dari segi program juga kami membuka luas kepada sebarang artis ataupun yang ingin bekerjasama dengan museum dan galeri negara lah. Cuma kami harap in the future we have more good relationship among us.
Hi, I'm Rahel from Ilham Gallery. I don't know whether all of you know about Ilham. We're fairly new. We started 3 years ago. We are a non-profit art space, privately funded, but a public art space. Apart from our exhibitions, our key priorities are really education and public programming. Some of the areas that we're really looking at is looking to try and really work with curators and also art writers. We've had several sort of workshops with curators. We've had an exhibition project that has worked with young curators, art writing, really to sort of encourage, I think, the peripheries around art making. And of course, it's also about being accessible to the public. Our public programming, I think, is one of the key things we do because it's about, I think, developing audiences, making the exhibitions and making things accessible to the public.
As it's sort of like suggested in our opening sort of like speech, it's almost as if there's this part that almost sort of like suggests that arguably some artists feel like institutions are in some ways very disconnected to maybe the daily sort of like concerns or the ones who cares about sort of like artists, and there's this sort of like gap between the sort of really goodwill and the good intentions of like our cultural institutions, as we've heard from all our sort of like speakers just now, but at the same time, it still doesn't sort of like address some of the sort of like core problem. So maybe one way to sort of like, I guess, sort of like think along a much more sort of like productive register is to sort of like get artists who are in some way sort of like, trying to sort of like engage these institutions like maybe through sort of like creative means. I don't know how, but I have a few names in mind that I sort of like wrote down. Principally Yo from who used to sort of like run Not That Balai Festival, but now runs like Lost Generation Art Space, Chani and Pankrop's Bulat down on our list. So I was wondering if we could sort of like get them to sort of like share their thoughts about how can artists and the arts community engage with or support these institutions and agencies of like that. If you were in a place to sort of like do that, rather than sort of like say, we're going to sort of go independent or we're going to go solo. The fact that these are institutions that continue to sort of like support the arts on sort of like many different levels. What is the sort of like best way to sort of like go about this? Yo, would you like to sort of like, I'm going to sort of like pick you because, you're always my go-to guy for all your years of sort of like experience in building bridges.
I'm Yo from Lost Gen, so we start to run our space in 2004. So, and then we are very small art collective and art space. So, but okay, just share a little bit what we are doing. We having a art space, and then we running exhibition, sometimes curating also. At the same time, we also doing community project, and then we also doing the residency program. So started 2008, we have a residency from German, but start from last year, we have an exchange program with the Frankfurt Basi. Basi also art space in Frankfurt, so we sending one artist there, and then they sending another artist here. But the funding is supported by German government or Goethe Institute, because I tell them we are third world country, so you need to pay everything. Yeah, we are not developed country. I think, okay. So, and then what we are doing, we try to, because we as you all know, we don't have funding from any of the government or private sector. So we try to using our way to running a space. So like working with foreign art agency is one of the way. Or sometimes we also like example, we do community projects, so the support is from the community. So I think we try to use our way to survive as artists. Their first job is to make themselves survive and then continue to do work. I think to run the art space also have the same thought. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Angela from Rumah. We've been running a residency since '94. We're not really official, but in response to Lost Gems situation, also what many other groups, artist groups are doing, it's, I think, an opportunity to recognise that the artists are in a unique position to initiate projects for the betterment of the arts industry or expose more activities to the public. And if CENDANA or other organisations were able to match corporate donors with artists, artists are not terribly good at presenting themselves, and corporate donors don't really want to get involved in supporting the arts because they see it as being too complicated, too difficult, and something in which they have absolutely no experience. But sitting next to Rahel here and hearing of her experiences with her donor, her source of funding is assured, and I think there are many opportunities in Malaysia to try and bring out the corporate role to support artists. If you tell them what the opportunity is, then maybe there will be more funding coming from the arts. We can't expect the government to give money to do the arts right now. We're just happy we've got a new government. So don't ask for too much too soon. But I think the corporates can get a huge mileage out of putting in more effort and more finance into supporting the arts.
Cairo, property lawyer. Just a thought, because property developers always has a lot of money. You can see Publica, what they did, okay, and are doing. This is about corporate. I'm taking a lead from Angela. Maybe the government should consider the development to have certain fund to be reserved for arts, because there's a lot of townships actually using arts. This is taking a lead from Chito's idea before about the economic, not just for the economy, but actually to showcase artists as a. But I may got Chito's idea wrong, but I mean just to make the art alive, as it was created. And
thank you.
Thank you for that. So what I hear is that you're referring back to Chito's comment earlier about the commodification of art. Angela also mentioned that perhaps wanting to link together agencies, artists together with agencies or corporate funding. Can we get some responses from the artists? How do you actually feel about your art being state funded or funded by corporations? Is that something that you actually want? Is that something that you see that agencies or institutions need to facilitate for you?
If I may respond again. I think there used to be a budget in building works that there would be a certain, or certainly some countries initiated, that there must be a certain percentage of the building budget dedicated to including artwork. But invariably this would go astray because the job was given to the developer's nephew's cousin or whatever, and you'd get some awful stuff coming up, and that's not really a good solution. But I think you can't expect the government to do this. I think CENDANA is well placed as a respected affiliate of a corporate, a senior corporate player, to assist in getting sponsorship, to encourage philanthropy somehow. Because philanthropy, it should come with no strings attached. And I think that's probably the core to our success. Not that I want to boast, but I'm not an art expert. But people send me proposals and I think, okay, that deserves a bit of an airing, so you give them an opportunity to try and fulfill that dream. It's not expecting a corporate reply, a corporate benefit, but at the same time, the corporates can actually benefit from it in the sense that artists do produce stuff, and that stuff is interesting, and it can be used by the corporates, if the artists agree, to develop ideas. You're not selling a product for the corporations, but you're trying to enlarge the discussion community-wise.
Thank you, Angela. I think I'll continue from what you have said. CENDANA is a good platform for us to move around. The artist has got product, the people needs a space to see and to hear. But what is missing so far, I feel that there's no specific channel to voice over to DPKL, if it's Kalupo, I love you. There's an ASEAN sculpture garden in the city, Lake Garden, but it's left there to rot and no one cares, I think. Yeah? The National Gallery and ASEAN started, I think, 2008 or later, and it has been there untouched, unrefurbished, and some of Sama Jamal's marble pieces. So it's a need for today and now, a platform, a voice to be heard by the BPL in PSA. Thank you.
Do you want to take the next question, or do you want to ask? Are you satisfied with that?
Is this a response to that?
Yeah, just pass it.
Assalamualaikum. Hi everybody. My name is Suhaimi Ahmad. Taking off on what I heard this afternoon, it's all about how I think government can play their role, blah blah blah. But this has been going on for many years, and they have been very supportive in many different ways. I think earlier on in the morning, somebody mentioned about foundation. I think it's from Penang. I think to set up some sort of a foundation. I think the idea is that if you can collate or you can put together all the contributions made by government through various agencies and GLCs and whatnot, I think the amount can be quite staggering. So, but it's all in silos. I mean, I think the best I can see other than the National Art Gallery is basically Petronas. But Petronas space is also quite limited. So, moving forward, maybe you should start thinking maybe this foundation should be realized, and whereby the government plus all the GLCs and private contributors and philanthropists can contribute. But this is a long-term plan in the sense that you require other incentives to the givers, like tax breaks and things like that. So I mean, if we keep on asking for money, but this will go on and on, but in the end, it will, what do you call it, we will come back to one full circle. So my idea or my suggestion is that maybe the foundation should be established, whereby the government plus the private sectors and the JLCs and individuals can contribute to this foundation, and probably there's something somewhere in the agenda the student mentioned about art council. Maybe moving forward, that's I guess the direction we should be thinking about. Okay.
Yeah, so we might go a lot later. We're going to talking about potential art council. We were hoping that maybe there would be some artists that would respond to the previous question about key institutions, agencies. But seeing as perhaps that discussion might be a little bit sensitive, you can also send those questions in, which we can include in our report later. But going from speaking about formal institutions and corporate bodies, we want to move on to our next question. So soalan seterusnya, bagaimana komuniti ataupun kolektif seni yang terletak di luar Kuala Lumpur membiayai diri mereka sendiri untuk berkarya? Adakah sistem dukungan seperti dana kerajaan cenderung untuk memberi manfaat kepada beberapa jenis artis lebih daripada yang lain? So the discussion is directed towards communities and collectives outside of Kuala Lumpur. How is it that you are self-sustaining? Is it working for you? And can this be a model that can be sort of followed upon in different parts of Malaysia? Can I
refer that we did fly in about 20 participants from outstation, am I right? So I was wondering if there's an opportunity for those who sort of coming from North KL, from different parts of Malaysia, to be able to sort of speak and share your experience, especially artists or here or academics.
Okey, saya respon sikit tentang soal keuangan tadi yang disebut sama ada agensi kerajaan ataupun okey, bagi penggiat-penggiat terutamanya di negeri memang amat memerlukan dana, kerana apa? Sebab di sinilah punca dia orang boleh buat aktiviti. Kalau tak ada dana, payah sikit nak buat aktiviti. Sebab aktiviti secara individu memang boleh dibuat, artwork boleh dibuat. Tapi nak menjalankan segala aktiviti lain memang memerlukan dana. Dan setakat ini kita tengok kalau di negeri-negeri memang kebanyakannya yang menjalankan aktiviti ataupun yang aktif seperti contoh di Johor dan Pahang, mereka ini dapat secara direct daripada kerajaan negeri dan sebagainya. Jadi saya rasa ini yang membantu. Itu.
Okay, for Penang, we have various I think we have the most art group, art societies in Penang, I think established and also registered. And also for an individual artist, I don't see that, I mean everywhere, the whole wide world, that we have a problem funding and so on. But in Penang, we are not suffering in that sense. I can see that because we have many platforms for artists in terms of space, in terms of money-wise or grant. Because, for instance, that we have a corporate sponsors where Penang State Museum and Art Gallery, we are not agencies which give grants for artists in residence. We provide services, but yet we channel all these group and artists to corporate funding where we have a networking. For instance, we have Butterworth Fringe program. Artists can go to that platform to produce and showcases their artwork and selling and so on. And also we have a Georgetown Festival. The state put the money in various entity which is set up based on the project. And for instance, for the foundation, I'm looking forward to have this foundation because I have the framework which I was exposed when I was in France. So thinking of setting up a foundation like Mr. Swami was mentioning, it is a good start. It has to start somewhere. It is a long process, I believe, but somebody has to start somewhere. And the suffering part, no, not in Penang. We have various. We have all of these artists in Penang, especially, they really know how to get it done. They have Pink City, they have Kazana. I don't know, CENDANA is like way far in Kuala Lumpur. I mean, we were doing good. We have many platforms. I mean, not we, them.
Yeah. Can I actually hear from others? I want also sort of people from outside of KL as well and give them an opportunity to sort of speak.
I think you need to listen from across the South China Sea.
Yeah.
Nampak lah again. I think after that, my colleague Jennifer Limby can respond to what I say. As a president of Satu and Sabah, I don't get anything. No money, nothing. We are the poorest of all the state, I think so. Since kalau kita lihat Sabah punya turnover for the budget of, not budget lah, income for perancangan, one of the biggest after Kuala Lumpur. I don't know whether I'm right. Dengar 3 bilion atau tak. That's why I heard from mayor of DBKK. But unfortunately, we don't have funding. The only funding I get is from Petronas. Tapi bukan bagi duit, dia bagi projek lah. Buat mural kanak-kanak sekolah dapat dalam 200, bagilah sama. Buat projek di Tenom, adalah sikit mural, dapatlah dalam 300, bagilah sama artis. I feel pity for my artist lah. Kalau boleh ada yang boleh tolong daripada korporat CENDANA, I really need your help. Tak apalah jadi minta sedekah for my artist. I have about 100 over. I don't have budget. Itulah yang, tapi hamba orang tu manage buat 1001 orang hutan. Boleh lah kita buat, dapat book of record, kita buat sana sini. I think a little bit of support from Jennifer Tinggi, Balai Seni Sabah juga ada bagi opening kat saya. Tapi duit saya tak dapat. Itu saya nak bagi tahu. Saya minta tolong lah kalau boleh. Tapi saya dia dah dengar orang Perak dapat duit, my anak dapat, anak tu dapat Penang ni dapat bajet apa nama Pulau Pinang. We don't have. That's why I think we need to have di Sabahan, because Sabahan are very talented. You tengok Akademi Bahasa Asia semua Sabah sapu. You know about artis in Malaysia, I tell you, takut. Awang Tamit, Bayu Otomo, ini orang Sabah.
Yeah.
Tapi they have to go out from Sabah and only they can get money. Thank you very much.
Okay, boss, sangat setuju.
Yeah.
Hello.
So just going back to that, so we have actually moved on to this, the other part. We're not talking about the formal institutions anymore. We're actually talking about collectives. So we want to actually, we're not talking about money. Right now we're trying to understand collective systems. How do art communities or collectives outside of KL support themselves? So boss, tadi kamu bilang kan macam kalau di Sabah memang susah dapat macam apa ni sokongan dan peruntukan lah untuk semua ini. Tapi sekarang saya mau ambil contoh daripada kamu punya kawan dari Ranau. Sebab Ranau memang tidak art scene di sana, tidak arts education. So dari Pangrok tu saya maaf.
What other thing? You want opportunity? Sabah tak dapat apa-apa. Whatever you have in KL, nothing there.
So that's why I want to talk to people who have made their own opportunities. Bukan saja dari Sabah, tapi dari Ranau, dari kawasan pedalaman lagi. So bolehkah kita tanya sedikit, rujukan sedikit kepada.
Can I say something?
We need to think about collectives right now.
No. It is relevant now. You're talking about outside KL activity. Have you heard of Sasaran Art Festival?
Yes.
They have organized this festival every 3 years, and each year they attracted every day 1,000 visitors. The festival goes on for about 10 days, right? And then they invited artists from 20 countries in Asia. Some come from as far as Italy and Spain. And they were running on the last festival cost them 600,000. And they get 20,000 from Ministry of Culture.
Okay.
And how they go on.
Understood. We can talk about festivals in the next session.
No, this is not about festival. This is about
right now
funding.
we're trying to talk about collectives.
This is a collective.
Sorry?
This is a collective. How they organize themselves in a small village in Sasaran. You know, they get their old schoolmates and all that. Some are in business. They can say, okay, can you help 10,000, 5,000, and then some of them they say, we have artists from 30 countries. We need rooms. The resident in Sasaran, they offer the house for the artists to stay for 1 week. You know, that kind of thing. And then the fishermen, they supply the fish for the food and all that. You know, this is how they work. And I hope that you all know about this festival, and I hope the institution that give funding will look into their next application. I think this is very important.
Tuan, thank you so much. I mean, that's a really sort of like a good example of the whole proponent sort of like spirit, right? Of people sort of helping each other and self-organizing on so many levels. Let's hear from Rizal, who's like also like Sabah, to sort of bring Sabah back into the equation, because I think we need to start recognizing that, you know.
Not Sabah for Sabah's sake, but we're just looking at, despite the logistics and despite, the context of Sabah, how are they organizing themselves?
Assalamualaikum. Sebenarnya saya tidak pandai bercakap, jadi saya coba kongsi apa yang sepanjang kolektif kami buat. Sebenarnya dia berbalik kepada artis itu sendiri. Sama ada kita mau buat untuk masyarakat ataupun untuk diri sendiri. Jadi apa yang kami buat, kolektif kami buat sebenarnya untuk masyarakat kami sendiri di tempat kami. Jadi kami guna apa yang ada di tempat kami. Kami guna dengan diri kami sendiri. Kami tidak tunggu dana untuk kami buat sesuatu. Dan apa yang kami buat sekarang dengan kerja-kerja yang kami buat, kami dapat tolong. Kami punya komuniti sendiri di kampung. Kami masuk sendiri di kampung, ajar bengkel, kita buat karya, bawa pergi luar dan jual. Itu yang kami buat. Dan bila kami buat begitu, orang mula ambil perhatian. Orang mula ambil tahu tentang kami, dan apa yang kami hasilkan orang mula bantu. Jadi saya rasa dia berbalik kepada artis itu sendirilah. Sama ada dia mau buat untuk diri sendiri, untuk masyarakat, dan apa yang dia mau, artis itu sendiri tahu. Dan kolektif kami selalu, bila kami bincang, kami selalu tanya macam, adakah kolektif kami perlu dana? Adakah kami perlu cendana? Kita tanya sendiri, adakah kita perlu cendana? Kalau kita mau, kita sendiri usahakan dapatkan sesuatu kan. Jadi kalau orang tanya macam kolektif saya, wah kamu ada dapat bantuan daripada mana-mana? Orang tanya, sebenarnya bantuan itu kalau kita mau kita kena carilah kan. Jadi kalau macam kami, kalau ada bantuan kami tidak tolak, kami ambil duit kita kan. Jadi itu saja yang saya mau kongsi lah. Dan saya datang sini pun untuk dengar pengalaman macam mana di sini punya pandangan. Terusnya.
So dari situ kemunculan atau tahu yang sebenarnya Bang Sulap diorang ada dua model. They have two modes of actually promoting the art. One is the artwork that actually goes to the festivals and galleries, and then the other one is the merchandising. So they actually fund themselves. So they actually support themselves through their own merchandising. Does anybody else want to follow up after that?
Can I sit to talk? I was thinking the collective in Penang, artist community is like, we have one group we work closely with Hinbas. Like, maybe my networking is not very good, so I not really link with state art. But Hinbas really provide a very open up space. When I say space, it's not infrastructure. But it's like every time that we have a project that the manager thinks is interesting, he will come approach us. We can provide you space, we can provide you slot. So even sometimes he also mentioned that like money-wise, he also can be support. So I think this is a very good initiative from private sector. Like Hinbas as a private initiative. And working as artists or practitioner in Penang, we will discuss among our community. Sometimes we like rabbits, non-stop running. You have to link with two people, state people and MPPP or So I think it's quite challenged. Like sometimes a practitioner need to play a role when you initiate a project. Like you need to link yourself to every single, like if you work with a community project, then you have to link with MPPP different department based on different issue. So I think this is our challenge also.
Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. And it's sort of like important to then recognize that, you know, as much as funding is important, as much as asking for money is important, as much as money is the mobilizing sort of like element in all the things that sort of like create as artists. And at the same time, okay, it's all these sort of like other sort of like factors that sort of like play into, you know, what we consider as creative practice, right? And I was wondering, the following question that we could perhaps ask is then, how do we sort of like build better visual arts networks throughout Malaysia to include other urban centers, rural or marginalized sort of like communities? I think Chani already hinted a bit that the kind of work that needs to be sort of like done in reaching out or at least engaging various other communities or listening into their stories and trying to recover other kinds of like narratives. If not to produce an alternative narrative, then it's to sort of like complicate our existing sort of like the current existing one that we have, or that we understand to be the Malaysian sort of like story. I wonder if we have Borneo Bangkil down, and perhaps also Janet is here from.
Yeah, so we want to move on to the next question, which is like how can art circulate throughout Malaysia instead of just being focused in Kuala Lumpur, because that does affect our visual identity in Malaysia very much. We want to talk about also self-sustaining systems, not creativity just in terms of production of the art, but creativity in terms of also looking for funding and support. So we want to try and talk to Borneo Bangkil coming in from Kuching, because they've got a very interesting framework. They've got a residency as well that just ended. I think a couple of weeks, that just ended a couple of weeks ago. So I'd like to hear from them, how is it that, why did you feel the need to create this residency, and how have you sustained yourselves?
Hi, very good afternoon to everyone. So I'm Sonia, I'm from Sarawak, and I'm also part of Borneo Bangkil along with Rushdie. So what Borneo Bangkil is, in a nutshell, it's a platform to unite and to celebrate Bornean creatives through interdisciplinary discussions and artistic and cultural exchange of knowledge. And one of our activities, so we have many kind of activities under Borneo Bangkil. We have meetups, we have community outreach, and we also have a creative residency that just ended. It was from 4th to 14 October, and Nadira and Sulak was part of our participants. What we did was that we actually, before the creative residency, we actually traveled throughout Borneo, which is Kuching, KK, and Pontianak, and as well as we met up with creatives, Bornean creatives in KL to discuss and to find out how is the art scene in your respective places, what issues do you face, and how can we help. And the issues I think that we face in Borneo, which when I say Borneo, I mean Sabah, Sarawak, and Pontianak, it's similar. It's that, you know, in Malaysia, the capital of or the center of media and culture is Kuala Lumpur. Same thing with Indonesia, the center of media and culture is Jakarta. And the thing is that it's not that Sarawak or Sabah or Pontianak lacks talent. In fact, some of the country's, you know, most outstanding creatives are from East Malaysia and are from Kalimantan. But they get sidelined by the policies and by the way things are. It's that, you know, a lot of activities or a lot of events are in Malaysia is very KL-centered, and same thing with Indonesia as well. A lot of things are very Jakarta-centered. I have no idea why this happens. When I think that, you know, if it's a national fund, I think it should be distributed equally among everyone. So anyway, what Borneo Bangkil did is that we turun padang to meet the creatives, and we find out the issues, and we work in a very collaborative manner. So it's not like, okay, you know, we're the organizers and we're the participants and we work everything and you don't do anything. No, we communicate and we work as peers with our artists. So there's no hierarchy, and there's a lot of, we try to bridge some common understanding. So, and we also try not to limit it to Kuching. We want to also feature Sabah and Pontianak and other places in Borneo as well. So that's basically our framework. Our funding, for Borneo Bangkil Residency in Kuching, we did receive funding from state government, but also a lot of crowdfunding and a lot of self-sustenance. We didn't receive much actually, but overall, thanks to our collaborators and supporters, we did have enough to. But the spirit is that just do it, basically.
No, thank you so much, Sonia. I have a sort of I have a follow-up sort of question, maybe then to also sort of direct it to the work that Jenna has been doing in Penang, but to also sort of think more creatively as to how, if we think of KL as that center, how do you bypass the center? Can Penang and sort of Kuching work together on some level? So have they worked together? Have they had a history of sort of working together that bypasses sort of KL altogether? And in that sense, then really sort of at least sort of gives us a sense that there's a possibility that KL is not sort of regarded as the center of sort of artistic production. There are different kinds of networks and conversations that were happening outside of the presumed sort of capital of the Malaysian art scene.
Okay, so far in my experience in the Kuching art scene or in the Sarawak art scene, there is not yet any active collaborations with Penang. We would love to, definitely, so if you're from Penang, hit us up. But so far I do recall one, which is, Mampu Art. Mampu Art, I think the first one was held in Penang, in Hinbas Depot, right? And they came down to Kuching with Kreko and with Chu and all that. They came down to Kuching and they organized Mampu Art Kuching. But so far that's the only collaboration that we have, but we have not followed up from that, so I think it would be good to have that as well. How do we bypass? I think really it's everyone working together. It's not a one person effort or one collective effort. I think there has to be a common understanding and awareness that there's this need and working together. And I think also help from KL would definitely help. I mean, it's not like we're trying to be enemies or anything, but I think just coming together and work for the greater good of the art scene in Malaysia. And once we have this, then I think it's fine.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't always have to be just Borneo and Penang, but
No. I'm just wondering out loud because also in Penang when we are working with artists in Arts Ed, which is our not a collective but a society that employs artists to do community-based projects, we face very similar problems, and I'm trying to think what is the main source. I mean, what is the main reason that we have a problem more with resources than with money? So one is, I'm just wondering whether some form of research, like what Borneo is doing, where they found some money to have facilitators who go around and maybe make a directory and make the networking happen. So this form of intermediary, small intermediaries, I'm not talking about big intermediaries like CENDANA, I'm talking about small, that means somebody funding small intermediaries to help make the connections between the center and the periphery. That's something that's missing. Secondly, I want to call up the issue of education, because I don't know about the visual arts specifically, so it would be something that you all would have to answer because I'm not a visual artist. But there is no alignment once people leave universities. If they want some kind of placement, some kind of internship which is longer, they want residencies, etc. There's actually no alignment and no intermediary that connects them to the various job possibilities within the visual arts as in the performing arts. So the alignment on, I don't know whether galleries and collectives actually want this kind of people working with them or want to use them as facilitators who go and do research, etc. Certainly it cannot happen in university at tertiary level. And a lot of people are just going for some other job, besides being an artist, just to keep themselves afloat.
And on that note, I wonder, I wonder if I could sort of direct a conversation to Serena, who's at University Science Malaysia with the Pusat Seni. Is that Pusat Seni? Pusat Pengajian Seni over there, and also Sunita from LaSalle, who has recently sort of put together a new program, right, on cultural management. If I'm not wrong, I don't exactly remember the exact full title. Maybe both of you are able to sort of share your experiences and how you've sort of worked around some of these issues.
Okay, I do agree with Janet. Because the courses that we had, I think, to my understanding, you at the MS Law, is that for fine arts, it is always, fine arts studio oriented. So if there were any subjects that sort of deals with management and all, it's going to be one or two subjects at 300 level or 400 level, which is not core, and the FYP will be the full project thing. Okay, so so the link between the tertiary to the industry itself sebenarnya tak ada. Okay, unless they go to internship, then later on they manage to get a way into the industry lah. So and also like because they are trained to be artists, that and that is only what the thing that they know of. So macam like to infiltrate into the periphery, to the support system and all that kind of thing, they were not well equipped because they're actually dalam training to as a trained artist. So we don't have proper arts management and courses and things like that, except for one or two classes that introduces the students. So that is actually the condition in Malaysia. Jadi we cannot fit students to actually work within the periphery. I mean, and at the end they will end up doing some sort of other jobs. So I don't know about Singapore. I guess like Surita, a better position, I guess.
Okay, Singapore benefits from policy that has been thinking about it on a larger scale. So the education policy is tied up with arts policy. And so in Singapore there are institutions that focus on arts management. Too many, actually, if you ask me. So there's going to be an oversupply of arts management graduates, and at all levels. So it's diploma level, bachelor's level, and master's level, at all three levels, and more than one institution. Only one at the MA level. So certainly there is a commitment to making sure that the other members of the ecosystem, which came up in the morning session, are being trained along with artists. However, employability of artists is a different matter, because that you can do through internships. There's very strong links with industry. Singapore's a tiny city-state, so it's possible. I mean, I have students that are pretty much in every type of institution in Singapore, from the National Arts Council down to independent. But when it comes to artists, it's a problem. But Singapore, being Singapore, the government has also recognized this. They recognize now that artists are often self-employed, and they're looking at support systems for that. So the Arts Council is just setting up a division to look specifically at how to support freelancers, recognizing that artists, whether you're a visual artist or also you're an actor, you are not going to be employed by a company. So what I'm saying is that there are different levels. There are capacity development training workshops to happen for artists after they graduate. There are extensive education systems at all levels at the tertiary level, as well as school level, to develop students in their education learning journey as artists. And there are also systems to look at once you've entered the field and how they can support you better. I don't know if that's going to be helpful, because I think it also takes a little bit away from the direction that we were going right now.
Any other?
I'd just like to clarify a bit about address one point from Janet. So for Borneo, we don't really have ready funding for our trips. When we went to Pontianak, KK, and KL, it was largely initially self-funded. So the money only came in a bit later, and when the funding from government and government and corporations that coming in was quite slow, So it was really, a lot of it was self-funded initially, but thank God we have trust and cooperation and collaboration among our fellow artists, and I think that is what made Borneo Bengkel thrive, and I think that should be the spirit for every art collective and communities.
I think that's a good thing to sort of like raise up, because Sabin was just saying over lunch. Sabin was just sort of like saying over lunch how this was actually a predominant model in Indonesia, where artists do not wait for the government to sort of like come and fund you. They want to sort of like go and engage with people in Sulawesi, the communities in Sulawesi. So they sort of like raise their own funds and sort of go out there and do a project and work out there, right? And do you want to sort of like say more about where this sort of like spirit comes from and how it's very different from this way of sort of like thinking, especially in Malaysia, right? Even when it comes to research, it's a sort of like culture that you'll not do something, you'll not sort of undertake a project until you receive the money.
Okay, just very quickly, what I was trying to say is that my name is Salvin. I'm one of the moderator later. but now not yet. But very fast. I think what happened in Indonesia, I think is very, very cursory comment. But what I noticed is that they were talking about researcher and artists. They were decentralizing away from the tree center, not just Jakarta, but Jogja, Jakarta, and Bandung, because those are the three centers of creative production and marketing and collection. And then the thinker and the scholar, the activists, they realized that, and then they were decentralizing from this tree center into where they come from. And I think I do not know what kind of spirit that would be, but I think it's all about being activistic, independent, and critical of the system of both production and consumption. How we as artists, you produce, and how you notice that there is problem in the way work is being channeled or how it's being distributed. And then they ask very critical questions about this, and then they respond to that. So we not just ask and look for solution for some, but they take the initiative. And this is where I think what the Bangkok Bonnell is interesting, is that if you keep on that idea of being independent, right, yet in tandem in conversation with institution, with other agency, we can spread the idea, you can co-influence each other. And very important, I think, when we start looking at this, whether in local, national or regional, is that we need to compare the models, because those models that works, whether from Art, from Penang or from different places, we need to know so that our friends, fellows from different persatuan in the negeri also understand, oh, they are different way of doing things. Because when these models are being shared, you also talk about the condition of how it's being done, and then whether you think this condition works for us or not is another issue. But at least we get to know. So knowledge here is still very important.
So artist collectives work best when they have an agenda, I suppose, or are on the frequency of marginalization. So now to the director, to
Yeah.
Yeah,
actually, what I would say is kind of loosely related to what Salvin said. How do I put this? Okay, so what I've been thinking about a lot recently is, like people like, oh, KL, Sabah, that reef, Sarawak, that reef, and all that sort of things. And one of the things that I've been thinking of is about like how do we fix this Malaysian narrative that includes Sabah? And when I asked Ilan that question, and Ilan just knocked me away and said, like, there's no such thing as a Malaysian narrative, which is true. and then I realized actually there is no such thing as a Malaysian narrative. There is no such thing as a one-size-fits-all sort of a story for the whole country, because Sabah is different, Sarawak is different, not even Semenanjung is different. Like all the different states of Semenanjung have its different stories, have its different ways of doing things, and I think one of my problems with the way we are doing things in Malaysia right now is that we are all looking towards KL, and we are all looking towards the KL model of doing things, the KL model of being an artist, of of selling your works, of like asking institutions for money or that sort of things and all. And I don't think that's a model that would necessarily work. And this is also something I think I speak with privilege of being from KL and being involved in the KL art scene. But I also wonder if it's helpful for artists and practitioners outside of KL to really just do your own thing and stick to it. And also for KL people to not look at all the other practices and say like, oh, that's so unsophisticated, Because, yes, of course, like the practices outside of KL would not be as sophisticated as the KL practices, but that is how that is the terms at which they are making their art with. And I think we need to respect that. And I think artists from outside of KL need to respect that fact also, that it's fine to do exactly what we're doing. Hence, in that sense, when I say to give support to artists and collectives outside of KL, I think we need to stop thinking of how we can support other states based on KL terms and like peninsula terms. I think we need to just be able to give that money to the state, and then let the people in the state and the state decide how they want to spend that money. Even if it's like, even you don't think like, oh, that's not so cool, but yeah lah, it's how they do things. And yeah, that one.